From ABC News Radio, KMET 1490 in Southern California. This is Biz Ninja Entrepreneur Radio with your host, Tyler Jorgensen.
Welcome out to Biz Ninja Entrepreneur Radio. If you're noticing a slight increase in my energy, just right from the beginning, it's because I have the energy master, Steve Larsen, on the call today. And we are so grateful for you to come out and be on Biz Ninja Radio. So welcome out to the show, Steve.
Oh, thank you so much. I don't know if I can do too much yelling right now. My throat's a little messed up, but normally I would, though. I'd pop all your ears.
Yeah, just being here, you're raising the energy level. So that's what we're. So here's what's fun. Like, your website is Steve J. Larsen, but you're Steven with a PH. Like, what do you go by? Are you Steve? Are you Steven? What do you prefer?
You know, after 4 years in the Army and got being called a lot of other things, Steve or Steven or Hey You is fine. So no, I started doing Steve Larsen because Steven Larsen on camera is hard to say that fast for me.
Okay.
I don't know. That's kind of how it's.
I've always known you as Steven, but so if I've got to switch to Steve, we'll see. I'm going to flip them around. We're going to go back and forth.
Totally.
So, all right. So backstory on you. I know the story, but give us your short version of the, like, who you are and how you, like, why do I want to have you on the show today? Right. Like, how'd you get here?
Sure. Yeah. So when my wife and I first got married, I mean, I'd already been trying a whole bunch of other businesses, but we had nothing, you know, and I went and we started 3 weeks in. I noticed she was staying in bed a lot, and I was still in college and she'd already graduated. And so I would come back from classes each day and she'd still be in bed. I was like, hey, what's going on? And she's like, oh, nothing. Okay. And then I come back the next day, same thing. Come back the next day, same thing. Finally, I was like, like, what's going on? We're just married. Are you still into this? Is it me? And
not the kind of staying in bed you were looking forward to.
Nope. And it actually got really intense, though. I basically coaxed out of her that she'd only been eating one meal a day, and it was because we had such little money. We had $1,000 to our name. I mean, no jobs, new town. It was a college town, so we couldn't really get jobs that paid more than a couple bucks an hour anyway. And, stuff kind of got real there. And I realized, like, oh my gosh, and for any guy who's ever experienced that, or anybody ever, like, that wrecks you, to feel like you're not the provider. So I was like, I gotta figure out something. And so I found out I could get student loans, and I went and I applied for student loans. We got them quick. No surprise there. And then, but they were going to come for like 4 to 6 weeks. And it was crazy because I was like, we're going to be dead like in a week, there's no way we're going to survive. Anyway, so I did something that was culturally not like I was raised to do. And I called my dad for money, and asked him for money. I said, hey Dad, my wife's eating one meal a day. And behind my back, I didn't know that, and it was seriously challenging my manhood. It really was. And, could you just float us some cash? As soon as the cash comes in, we'll go and I'll pay you back. Long pause on the phone. And he said, son, and I'll always remember this. I was like pacing around this room ferociously. Cause I was really nervous to do that.
Yeah.
And, I was pacing around. I was like, asked the question. He goes, son, no. And he goes, if I give you this money, you will not exhaust resources that you didn't know you had. And it was interesting for me to go through that with him. And, awesome dad to say something like that and not bail his kid out. And I don't frankly remember how we made it through that, but I was on fire. And it started something in me that I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs fail to gain, which is this, like, just fire in the gut, just to move. And I started doing everything from real estate, residential, commercial, to stocks and options. I did door-to-door sales as a telemarketer. I sold ebooks. I sold random junk I was buying. I was a traffic driver for Paul Mitchell. I mean, it was crazy. I did all sorts of diamonds. I mean, it was all over the place in these 3 to 6 month swings. And I would learn, but totally fail. And I would learn, totally fail. And I think it was like around like try 12 or 13 where like things started actually sticking. And I'm like, oh, that's crazy. And it was around the time we started, I was driving traffic for Paul Mitchell. I was in college and we were doing a project for them in one of my marketing classes. And my buddy and I went out and we're like, hey, we're going to go and we're going to get, we were doing all these surveyings for their company. And I was like, you know what, we're going to go out and we're just going to run some Facebook ads to this thing and blow it up. And together, he and I got more than the entire class combined for this thing. And Paul Mitchell's like, hey, we got questions on the social media thing. Like, who do we grab? And these teachers were like, we don't know what these two kids are doing, but grab them. And so we started building websites for the rising celebrities before they go on TV. And we could drive a buttload of traffic, but then like suddenly, like it wasn't converting. And like until that point, I had never considered that it's not enough to just get eyeballs. Like what's the actual psychology behind it? Which is such a base level question, you know, now. And so we still didn't have any cash. And I start snooping around the internet, and Russell knows this story and he laughs about it, but I stole one of Russel Brunsen's courses, .com Secrets X, and I got a bootleg copy of it. And I went through and I was like learning this stuff because we didn't have anything. I was, anyway. And I told him that. I was like, dude, I'll pay you back. He's like, no, man, it brought you to me. And anyway, so I started learning this stuff, and the more I applied of it, the more money I started making. And I was like, I got to prove this whole funnel building thing that I'm learning. So I went and I started building all these funnels for free for all these companies, making a whole bunch of cash. And then Funnel Hacking Live came along. I was like, this guy seems legit. Like I'm making money when I do what he says. So then I'm making money for the people too, but we don't have the cash to like, discretionary income to really give.
Now this is Funnel Hacking Live 2 in San Diego, right?
Yeah. 2016. Yeah. Yeah. And I started trading funnels for plane tickets and funnels for hotel nights and funnels for event tickets and stuff, and just bootstrap my way there. And I remember I was riding, those like city bikes that you rent. What money we did have, I couldn't get like a cab or whatever. So I like had my luggage and I was renting a city bike, like riding around the bay over to Funnel Hacking Live around my shoulder. I was just making it work. Yeah. And I walked on up, and I was already a hyper user. ClickFunnels had only been around for a little bit by that time, and I started using it right after beta. They left beta. Yep. Like you, right? I mean, that's about, yeah.
Yeah. And, a lot of our stories cross over in terms of timing.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I walked on in, and they said, you're that kid pulling off all that Star Wars ninja crap. And that was Mark Mangater.
Yep.
And he said, I want you to apply. And then I got 4 more job offers, and 2 days later, I was in ClickFunnels. 2 days after that, I graduated college. 2 days after that, I was next to Russell.
And I remember this because this is when you and I first met. We met in the hallway.
Yeah.
I'm hanging out with Mark, and you came walking by, and Mark says, hey, how'd the interview go? And you go, it went really well. And then like the next time we saw you, which was like 5, not that long later, you're like, they offered me a totally different job than I thought. And then all of a sudden you were like, and we had mutual clients and stuff like that, but all of a sudden you're Russell's right-hand guy. And that's where a lot of people in the ClickFunnels world know you, because for the first few years of ClickFunnels, you were just in the background and in the foreground of a lot of Russell's stuff, and working hand in hand with him. I'm sure that can be, and you could do an entire video series on like what you learned working with Russell, but what would you say is like the one big takeaway that you got from your time there being the funnel guy at ClickFunnels?
Oh man, I might have to organize that by topic.
Well, let's do that by topic. So let's do it as like, what's the big takeaway you got? And I think I know the answer from just simply like how to make, I'm going to lead the question.
Sure.
About offers.
Okay.
Because I think that's something that I think is going to become a big thing for you. Is what's the big difference? And you said it earlier, in having just a website or having just something to get eyeballs on, and the psychology of the person coming to that website versus what your goal is, right? So how do you structure, like how did you learn through that phase of working there, the difference of having an irresistible offer versus just putting a product up for sale?
Sure. So there's several different ideas to follow with this. First idea is obviously, I always get nervous when someone comes to me like, hey, Steven, do you think this is going to sell? And I don't know. I have no idea. And frankly, that person doesn't know either. I was never do this to anybody ever, but my first kid was on the way. Literally, we were in the hospital about to have this kid be induced. And Noah Keegan at the time had this offer. You could text him before you bought with any questions. And so I was texting him, like my wife was not in labor yet. We were just there in the waiting game, but don't do that. And I'm texting Noah and I'm like, hey dude, I got this sweet idea. And I've talked to a bunch of people. They all said they really like it. What do you think? And he goes, I don't know. I don't care. I was like, wait, what do you mean? Do you think it's a good idea? He's like, dude, I care what people think by what they give me in money. Like, they vote with their wallets, man. I don't care. And I was like, what? And I had never thought about that at that time. And so number one, like, it doesn't matter what your opinions are. And I think that's what a lot of entrepreneurs will get stuck up on and be like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know that I like this offer. Well, you don't fill your own wallet, so who cares what you think, you know? It's like, and so there's this balance though between selling what people are buying and selling something that's slightly on the cutting edge, you know?
You have to factor in there's something that you're actually excited about, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I guess obviously you can sell things. I've sold plenty of products on e-commerce that, like, whatever, I didn't even exist in the machine. It's just a product. But a
Right.
lot of times, especially if you're the face of a company, it's got to be something you believe in. So there's kind of that balance of an offer you believe in, something that people want, and like making it unique and new, right? And something kind of, I think you always talk about blue ocean strategy type stuff, right? So
Yeah, totally. And like, if you don't totally love the product that you know people are buying, well, then at least fall in love with the cause that you have, you know, or fall in love, you know. So it brings in this interesting conundrum though, you know. If I go out and I just figure out what people are buying and just sell that, I will be like everybody else and eventually only compete on price. But if I turn around and I say, okay, what are people are buying now? And it's kind of like, you know, Dorothy and the Yellow Brick Road. You know, we follow the Yellow Brick Road as far as it's gone down that market path, and then we make a new brick rather than the same, you know, that it's more that way. It's like, right, Henry Ford, right? Totally coined for saying, you know, if I just listened to everyone else, I would have made a faster horse. And so,
right.
like, he's still delivering the result they want, but he's switching up, literally, in this case, the vehicle to get there. And there's kind of the combo between the two. So when you're selling stuff, you know, we talk about offers all the time. Like, in my mind, like, the first part doesn't have to be the first part, but half of it should be, right, the stuff that's slightly the genius of the entrepreneur, the stuff that's that might be way out there, the stuff that's new and exciting. But it's also this blend of selling what others are buying at the same time. And if you go too far out, suddenly no one's able to actually consume the thing. It's too disruptive. You know, it's like, what? Like, how many of us use Excel for all the features it has? No, like,
Right.
you know, add, subtract, you know, divide, you know, that's it. But it can do so much more, you know. So, but if it didn't do those things, no one would know what to do with it.
Right.
It's a blend between the two. And I think one of the reasons people get so stuck in this game is they'll go around and they'll be like, you know, I've got this amazing idea. No one's ever done it before. It's like, A, that's scary.
Super scary.
And then B, though, like, one of my favorite books is it's The Innovator's Dilemma, which basically says, like, if a market doesn't exist, you can't analyze it. You know, if you got the sweet idea and no one's done anything like it ever, it's actually really nerve-wracking. And
Sure.
if you go and you start pursuing it, like, you'll actually go and create something out of the own blueprint that you see in your own head, how that should be made. You should make that first cutting-edge product with the customer. And I feel like that's anyway.
Cool.
I totally geek out about that.
No, yeah,
that's a long answer, man.
I love it. And so it was 2010 on this radio show back when I was on NBC instead of ABC. I was reading Blue Ocean Strategy for school.
Yeah.
And we were kind of having a conversation about this topic, and I came up with the term pink ocean strategy.
Interesting.
Because I'm a little, like, for me, total blue ocean, that like true innovative space is scary because there's no, like, it's not only is it not red with other competitors, it's not green with people spending money.
Right. It's
so, like,
unproven.
if you just get outside of the fringe of the sharks, right,
Yeah.
and like where it's deep red, and you go into that pink area where there's some stuff happening, there's some opportunity, but there's still room for innovation, and you can use the data from the market to innovate. That's where I try to create stuff, is in that, like, you know, and that's where I think you can create a new opportunity or an opportunity stack or a switch or whatever. And you can do that in the areas where you know that there's market demand, right?
Yeah.
But you have to come up with something new and come up with that new, like, what's the unique opportunity in that?
Yeah.
What do you think of that? Am I good? Am I on point?
Well, yeah, totally. I've never thought of it that way. 100%. Like, yeah, like I've never thought of combining natural colors. That's kind of cool. But yeah, it's like you sell, and this is how we teach a lot of people to do it as well. Like, when you're going out and you're actually selling the first product, the first version of it, you should look at it like it is a broken thing always and not fall in love with it. And you make the first version with the customer. Then you come back and you break and rebuild it and you iterate. So finally it's at the spot where it's like, man, literally the market made that product for me. I would have not thought to do it in that way without their input. And like,
Absolutely.
in my mind, it's so much more safe to do it that way.
So you've become really good at all this ClickFunnels stuff, right? Now, there's the technical side of ClickFunnels, which I think is good, and the team over at ClickFunnels is doing a great job of building a good system that the average person can get in there and build stuff.
Right.
Cool. But you and I probably see this I see it all the time, and I know that you see it 10 times more than me. People ask, like, which funnel should I use for this? Or which funnel should I, like, does anyone have a real estate funnel I can use? And I'm like, you're missing the whole point of this system. Like, you can model what works and write funnel hack, but in the end, you've got to look at what is the offer that you're trying to do and what is that. So what's your advice to people who make that, what I feel like kind of the misunderstanding of how the funnel system works?
Sure. I heard it said one time that the offer should choose the funnel. It's kind of like, it's like Harry Potter, you know?
Yeah.
The wand chooses the wizard, Harry. It's kind of like that, right? But it's interesting. We were just talking about this. I was at ClickFunnels HQ yesterday. We were chatting about this very thing. It's an interesting conundrum that you go through, because it's not like, you think of the three things that I believe make up a funnel. It's, you got a sales message, which in my mind, it's like the most important piece. People skip by it. They're like, what's the offer? What am I going to sell? And then it's some scary crap when you turn around and you realize, wait, I don't have any clue how it sells, and it really should be the other way around. And so first I go obsessed crazy hard over the actual sales message. And then when wallets are flying through the air, they want whatever I'm talking about so badly. That's actually when I go create the offer I was talking about. I used to do it the other way around. I've wasted tons of time that way. And first, what sales message gets people off their butts? Humans are lazy. Normally humans are lazy. So how do I get them off the ground while, money in the air? They're so excited. They're pumped. Then I'm creating the first version of the product with them. Then I obsess over all the little funnel stuff. Like, because you're right. It's totally, from a technical standpoint, it's really not that challenging anymore at all.
Right.
It's usually a marketing issue.
But what you just basically said, sales message, which I want to dive into what you define as sales message, because I think that's really important for people to get as a takeaway from today. Yeah. And then offer and what that product is, right? The product and what makes that product unique in the marketplace. And then funnel stuff. And I think the general trend is that people are trying to do that in inverse order. They're trying to build a funnel, and then they're adding a product, and then they're trying to go edit somebody else's copy, right? So let's break that down. Like, what is a sales message? Help us to define that for the listeners.
Sure. So the first thing is understanding that there's a huge difference between sales and marketing. And when I understood that difference, my wallet got a lot fatter. And I had been treating all engagement like a sales engagement rather than a marketing engagement until I understood that. And I Joe Polish talks about this. He says, sales is what happens face to face, but marketing is how you get them to your face. And I feel like so much is done, what's cool is that, the better you are at the marketing, obviously, the less amazing you have to be as a sales closer. And so when I talk about sales message, it's kind of this combo between marketing and sales at the same time. So marketing, let's talk about, for marketing, what is marketing? Marketing is the act of changing someone's belief. That's really what it is at the essence of it. If I can understand what someone currently believes, tell them some stories in my message that change their beliefs and the way that they see the world, I have effectively marketed to that person. I've educated them with the intent to purchase. And that's really what marketing is. The sale is just all the logical reasons why they should purchase now. It's like, hey, it's half off right now. Hey, the timer's about to go down. It's buy one, get one free.
Urgency, scarcity, risk reversal, all those mechanisms of sales that we've learned have worked over time, right? And those are kind of scientific. There's a lot of data on that.
Yeah.
But the marketing and the belief shift, that is a little bit more of a fluid thing that you have to kind of work out, right? Mm-hmm. And figure out based on. And so I think, I don't know if there's a better example of marketing storytelling than Russel Brunsen. He's remarkable. So tell us a little bit about how important it is to be able to tell stories to, like you said, to change the belief, and stories that lead to change. Not only, maybe give us an example of that.
Sure. I think that storytelling is behind offer creation, like the most important thing you could ever learn in your entire life. The problem is that if I say that, people think of like Goodnight Moon, and it's not sexy, right? And so like storytelling, there's no other higher leverage activity I believe you could go learn. Doesn't matter what the tech is for wherever you are. Doesn't matter, like the ability to tell story, because what you're doing is the story is what changes the belief. We all have these beliefs inside of our head. I don't know how you could like actually really learn what marketing is without learning more about the brain. We all have these beliefs and the blueprint by which we see the world, and it is upheld by our past experiences. I have learned that I should not put my hand, in a pond of piranhas, because there was a story once I heard of a guy that did that and just ripped his hand apart, right? You know what I mean? Like whatever it is, we are so story driven at a human level.
Yeah.
And if we can understand the story that the majority of the customer is experienced in their life, I can start from where that story ended and tell a new story. And we're finally in their head. They're like, wait a second. Oh, it caused this epiphany. That's actually not true. If I put my hand in water that doesn't have piranhas in it, I'm not going to, you know what I mean? Like whatever it is. So
no, that's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think we can look down like over the ages, right? And you can almost do like look through, sociology and realize that like all cultures have used stories to teach principles.
Yeah.
Right. Like religions are storytelling driven. Like here's a parable about this, here's a story about this. And then there's always what's the moral of the story. Right. And then you look at, TV shows and entertainment, and these are all storytelling mechanisms trying to get you to have a certain feeling or invoke certain emotions. And then we get into like normal human everyday interaction. And most of us suck at telling stories, but that's how we learn, right? And so what, if there was one thing you think you could say to someone, like, hey, to get better at storytelling, do this, what would that be?
Honestly, I like the Epiphany Bridge script. That's a great script to learn. But like, I think people get too afraid to be vulnerable in their story.
Sure.
When really, like, that's the thing that actually gets people to connect with you in the first place.
So here's my challenge with that. And I'm going to like full transparency, me being a little bit vulnerable, right? We hear a very similar journey being shared at things like funnel hacking or in marketing and business in general, where it's, I was broke. I tried all these things and failed.
Yeah. We
heard one earlier today. Then I found this.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden things started working. And I'm not broke anymore. Now I'm not sleeping on the couch, and now we eat 3 meals a day and they're all OBD steak, right? Yeah. So that, that story, you've lived it. I've lived it too. Okay. But we also hear it a lot. Right. Here's the challenge. When you're not to the point yet where you're on the other side of the journey, it's hard. I think it's hard to be vulnerable where you're like, I'm still struggling. I'm still struggling with ramen, right? So you see what I'm saying? So this fits specifically into education or business education or marketing skills or those kind of products. But like those stories being told in ways that are more around other products or other services. Maybe do you have any examples of that? Like
100%. So I get asked that a lot on stage. So because they're like, wait, I'm not where I want to be. Here's the thing is like, if you had never heard of Tony Robbins and he's at all these success stories still, and he just barely started publishing right now, would you believe him as easily? Right? No. What's funny is that when you think about like, the movie Catch Me If You Can, right? Catch Me If You Can. And he says, how did you get one chapter ahead, right? I was just only one chapter ahead. What's funny is that if you wait till you are a thing, it's harder for people to believe you along the way. I started publishing on my podcast. I did not want to, right? Because I didn't want to learn how to talk. I didn't want to learn how to tell storytell or anything like that. It's the same exact objection. And after I'd been doing it for a while, I sat down, next to Russell one day for work, and I knew I'd done a great episode that morning. And I sat down and I go, dude, I was listening to one of my episodes, one of my earlier ones. And I was like, dude, you're right. For whatever reason, around episode 30, I found my voice. I don't know how to teach that except with someone just doing it. And then I was like, I listened to like episode 1, 2, and 3. Dude, I'm going to go delete those. Those were crap, man. Are you kidding me? And he's not like a confrontational dude, right? Yeah. And so he looks at me and he's working at his computer and he goes, no, like just super loud. He's like, don't you dare do that. And he goes, the reason why he goes, He said,
awesome.
That's how people know you were human once. And I was like, oh, interesting. Like, I usually don't get the kind of reaction out of him.
Yeah.
He was so forward because
I love that.
yeah, without the comparison. And so what the trick is that if an entrepreneur can understand that when they can learn to publish in the bottom and bring an audience with them, like, I know that's one of the reasons why my audience has been like just really fast to me, because instead of the storyline being, look what I've done, it's here's what I'm going to do. And you say, look, here's what I did this and I tried. I'm going to call my shot and they come with you. I'm going to call my shot and they come with you. And after a certain amount of time, it's crazy the loyalty that builds. So most of my stuff now that I put out is with that storyline. You know, I've left this, I'm going to do this, and I'm calling my shot. I'm going to go build this. Follow me in my journey. And I just document the journey.
Yeah. And so, and you know what, like a lot of people, I've got a couple of different ways I want to handle that conversation because I think it's super important.
Yeah.
I really, really like the early days of marketing in your car.
Yeah.
Right. Like when Russell did the, like, whatever, the 100 episode podcast, the MP3 player, whatever it was, right. Which is super awesome. Yeah. That's going backwards in time to go through like the journey of how he built ClickFunnels.
Yeah.
To me is so amazing. Like, I think everyone should go do it. Right. Like, because now ClickFunnels is huge and it's really hard for a starting guy to connect with somebody at that level at the same human experience. Right. Oh. It's just human nature. Yeah. And that's why, like, you know, he did a brilliant thing, like creating you guys as like this, you know, dream team of people that are slightly more accessible, slightly more human. Yeah. You're all still superstars and Avengers, but like,
no, I totally get it though. It's Russell. Yeah, I totally get it.
And so I totally agree with you. And I think that that's vulnerable means just being honest in your current position. Yeah. And it doesn't mean you've got to like always be a sob story, but you can just be like, guys, this is what I'm building towards. And then when you hit the success stories, then you share a different version. You know, you can, that story can evolve. And what I always tell people is, you know, if you're just getting started, don't worry about how good it is because no one's listening. Yeah. Right. Like, and so it's going to take you time to build it up. Like your first 5 or 6 listeners are probably friends and family anyways. They're going to love it. Yeah. Right. And then as it grows and as it expands and as it becomes something more, then like your audience grows. Like I just had a memory pop up on Facebook, right, from 8 years ago, where Garrett J. White commented, "Congrats on the birth of my son," on Facebook. And I was like, dude, I knew him before. And then I went into my emails and I realized like I knew him right when he was starting Warrior, before it became Wake Up Warrior. Right. And like we had like had conversations because we had gone through the real estate crash together. And then I'm like looking at him now and I'm like, dude, if that guy hadn't have been willing to just iterate his story over and over and over and over, he'd never be where he was now, you know, where he is today. And so it's crazy. Like, but at the beginning, you know, the audience is small and your story is different, but it evolves and you evolve with it. And so I think we just have to be okay being in our current state and thinking that that's okay because it can still be inspiring to somebody. Right.
Yeah, it's not actually, the thing is that to us, it feels like a weakness, but actually to the rest of the world, it is a superpower. And when you take all the things that like, oh man, I hate talking on the phone. I don't know why, I hate it. But when I'm open about that and I say, look, I think it comes from this, and I think it comes from this, like they want more of you, you know? And when you come in, anyway, it's super, super interesting to do it that way. The funny thing about the storytelling piece though, is that, and a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with this, like, the entrepreneur gets sick of their story way before the market does. There was a guy, he was like one of my first mentors. He was the CMO of like Denny's and Pizza Hut. Sure. He invented stuffed crust pizza. Oh. And he told me, he said, he brought me to the side one day and he goes, and we had been marketing this little side business, some of those students, and it was doing really, really well. And I was like, I'm so tired of this. Like, I feel like I'm just shoving things down people's throats now. And he's like, what he told me is the moment that you feel like you're being annoying is actually when people are just starting to notice you even exist. And it's like the hardest part for someone who's starting to tell their story to get over. Well, they don't want to hear about me again. They probably forgot about you. You know what I mean?
Or didn't hear you the first time.
Or they didn't hear you the first time. Yeah, it's like just getting used to that and being able to tell that.
And I think that's a really big thing for kind of like the challenge of the entrepreneurial ADD, right? So Like you're really good at webinars and you talk about them a lot. And the general principle, right, is like continue to do the live webinar every week for a year. And that's how you really craft it. Like most entrepreneurs get totally bored of that.
Oh yeah.
So maybe, and that's kind of the same thing you're talking on, right? You've got to get past that, like realize that your message is going to be new to new people. And that a lot of people need to hear that same message 3 or 4 times to even like let it sink in.
Sure.
What are you working on now? What are you building?
Yeah. So I was we built the 2 Comma Club coaching program, over a year ago actually. And Russell was talking to all these people, all his inner circle people. And I started realizing he's saying the same thing over and over and over and over and over. I was like, dude, let's make a course that they have to go through first, and then it can get to you and you can do the high level stuff. And it's like, okay, cool. So we built the program. I was the only coach for a while.
Yeah.
About a year, 600 people. It was a lot. And we, we put all those things together, and I started teaching webinars, and suddenly like tons of my students started making, if not hundred thousands of dollars, millions. And they were getting the 2 Comma Club and stuff. And I was like, whoa, that's crazy. And then I had this, I don't know when it happened. It was like this look in the mirror moment. And I was like, I actually have never done a webinar. And it was like this complex that started, man. And I was like, I would never go to the gym and hire someone who's overweight to teach me to lose weight, and and it was one of the scariest moments of my entire life. And I was like, I have to leave ClickFunnels. And I didn't want to, but I needed to put money where my mouth was.
Right.
So I left ClickFunnels and started building out this thing. And I'm building out, I'm teaching MLMers how to not do the classic talk to your friends and family thing. So we have a bunch of people in there, and they're all with automation, auto recruiting, and it's been a bunch of fun. We've had a lot of success with it.
So if and I do have some listeners that are in the network marketing space. So if that's your world, check out Secret MLM Hacks podcast, right? That would be where they should go and learn more.
Yeah. Secret MLM Hacks Radio. Yeah.
And then, Secret MLM Hacks Radio. All right. And then you've got Sales Funnel Radio, which is your podcast that you've been doing for quite a while now, which is really awesome. And people can go to stevejlarsen.com to learn more about you. Man, I literally, I think could talk with you and interview for like 6 hours. But the radio show is 28 minutes and they don't let me just keep going. So,
okay, cool.
But here's the thing. I am so stoked for you and for everything that I've been able to kind of watch from a fly on the wall position you do over the last few years. What's the shot you're calling for the rest of this year?
I got my first 2 Comma Club award for the 2 Comma Club coaching program. And it was kind of in tandem with side by side with Russell. So Russell had me get on stage, man, and said, hey, let's go call your shot from stage on Funnel Hacking Live. And I was like, what? Are you serious? It like freaked me out. So anyways, so as far as calling the shot, and if you don't follow the journey along the way, I am doing, my goal is 2 million this year. So
cool. And then I'm noticing a bunch of boxes in the back. Is that Dream 100 type boxes?
Yeah, that's exactly what that is. Yep, we're awesome. Shipping out a bunch of stuff right now.
That's cool. That's awesome.
You can see that.
Yeah, I'm just finally getting in. I had Dana Derricks on the show, and I've been reading Chet Holmes's book, and so I'm finally getting really clear on like what I do, and so it's really fun to now be able to like apply the mechanisms into my stuff. Which for so long I was like, I had a supplement company and I had a bunch of gyms and I had this, but like none of it was the one thing that I do, and so like it's been fun kind of becoming clear and being able to finally like apply all this stuff to our own things, which is kind of what you're now going through, creating your own things and doing your own marketing. What, to me, none of this matters if we're not building the life that we want.
Yeah.
What's one major item on your personal, not business, bucket list that you're going to accomplish in the next 12 months?
I was talking about this with a lot of the inner circle people, and someone mentioned to me that he said in every phase of this business, whenever you're hitting a new phase, the entrepreneur must reinvent themselves, not the business. And if they don't, the business does not progress. And so one of the things I'm doing is I'm not good with a daily schedule. I'm just not. And I don't think most of us are, honestly, who are entrepreneurs. So for me, honestly, the things I'm doing is there's the daily schedule going on. Can get back into doing triathlons, stuff like that. Cool. So more personal hobbies that I like to do in the past that I just dropped.
Yeah, no. And to me, that's crucial because like for a lot of us, business becomes the hobby because we love it so much. And entrepreneurship is just such a fun thing. But I think it's really important to have hobbies and goals and like I'm really big into travel, right? And so like being able to go do things and experience things that just fuel the entrepreneurial spirit, but all by almost taking a break from it.
Yeah.
Well, cool, man. I really appreciate you. I think you're a superstar. What's your Justice League icon? What are you?
I'm Green Lantern.
All
I had
right,
to go buy the movie and watch it when they said it. I was like, oh, that is.
That's a good movie, but thank you for coming out, man. Really appreciate it. It's been a long time coming. And I'm really excited to watch you not only hit your shot, but I'm sure you're going to overshoot it. So congrats on everything you've been up to, man.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, my Biz Ninjas out there in radio, YouTube, Facebook land, wherever you're tuning in, it's your turn to go out and do something.
Thank you for listening to Biz Ninja Entrepreneur Radio with Tyler Jorgensen. Please make sure to subscribe so you're first to hear new interviews and episodes. If you found this podcast to be valuable, please share it with a friend. Don't forget to visit our online dojo at bizninja.com to claim your reward for listening to the show.